on a bicycle again, but this time in the city of The Hague, where I'm on my way to the Residentie Orkest, the Philharmonic Orchestra of The Hague, and they are rehearsing with Hooverphonic. Really curious to hear what that sounds like, and who knows, I might be lucky enough to get an interview with one of the true rock stars of the Flanders. Hello again. Like a love, just give a little to me. I'm standing here with two incredible gentlemen. The one is a conductor, the other is a rock star in the true sense of the word. Callier and Rundell. I'm going to interview them about the programme on Cross-linx, which is starting very, very soon. They just had a rehearsal with the Residentie Orkestra, so let's see what they thought. I remember back in my days when I was studying at university somewhere deep in the 90s, it was Hooverphonic and Portishead, which got me through the nights of studying. Yeah. Thanks for that, by the way. But at the same time, you've kept on developing.
We always evolved, you know, like basically for us, you know, like we were always inspired by soundtracks, you know, but there's so many movies, so there's so many different soundtracks. So every album was always like a different soundtrack to a different movie that didn't exist. So that's why we were influenced by so many different kinds of music. So one of the influences was, of course, like you said, like the electronic music of the 80s. But on the other hand, we were also a lot inspired by John Barry or Henry Mancini, or like, you know, like more like composers who are more into soundtracks. So that's the only red thread through our work, is actually that it always can be like a soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist.
And most soundtracks come with an orchestra. Yeah. Is that why you're working with orchestras now?
I just fell in love with strings at a young age. I still remember being in love with a young girl called Manon, and I was like 16. And you know, my father loved Serge Gainsbourg, you know, like, and you know, I didn't like Serge Gainsbourg. It was music for old people, you know. But then one day I just entered the living room and there's this CD and it says like Manon. There was a song that Serge Gainsbourg wrote for her, and I put it on, and it's the most beautiful string kind of like arrangement. And I fell in love with strings, Manon, Serge Gainsbourg. Manon was out of the picture really fast, but the two others are still there.
No pressure for you then, Clark, to get the orchestra to basically perform the love song of his youth.
That's right. Well, I mean, thankfully the notes are great. The notes that have been provided by Alex and his arranger Cedric and all those people are great. They work beautifully for the orchestra. And they immediately find that sort of film-like sound world. Sometimes it's quite Hollywood. Other times it's quite interesting. A lot of those film scores that you talk about have their roots in Stravinsky, have their roots in Korngold, have their roots, of course, in Philip Glass and Steve Reich. And of course, those references, the orchestra recognize immediately. So they immediately know how to play it, and it becomes a sort of extraordinary, new and interesting hybrid sound world. So you have very much that world of film music, but very much married and complemented by the fantastic tunes of Alex.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's a very thin line to kind of like, you know, like you're walking on when you try to combine orchestras and pop music. But for us, it's just from 98, we started with Eden, was one of the singles on Blue Only Powdered Milk. Immediately we got into strings and in orchestrations and stuff. So for us, it's really our natural kind of environment. And it just took us a long time before we were able to do it in live with a real orchestra, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
So we only, in 2011 was the first time we ever did it, but we immediately, it's just that energy, you know, like with so many people like playing music. I just love it. It's like, but it's a thin line to not make it too kitsch. Although from time to time, you know, like at the end of the set, it's crossing a link and it's avant-garde, but from time to time we can play a little bit of Birdback reggae.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Definitely. I mean, for somebody like Alex, who's so interested in sounds, you know, the sounds of an orchestra, there's nothing as complicated or deep or colorful as that. And that I think is what we bring to the table, to somebody with his imagination.
Because the mix will be new for a lot of people. That's what Cross-linx is about too. What to listen for in this form of music that you're making now?
In the end, I think it's all about emotion, isn't it? Because in the end,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
we're here with so many people, but in the end, the singer is kind of like there, and we just, with the whole orchestra, the band, we try to kind of support like the emotions she kind of tries to kind of like, you know, put forward, you know. So for me, you know, it's all about emotion, and it doesn't really matter if it's electronic or if it's played or if it's orchestra or really like just piano vocal. It's all about like trying to kind of, whenever somebody walks to me and says like I had goosebumps, then
it also, you know, the orchestra, the sound of an orchestra is a kind of visceral thing. Yeah. It feels a certain way on your body, the way the strings feel, the way suddenly the brass can add warmth or fire, and the way the strings can provide mystery or cloudiness and all that color. It just leads to the emotion. It becomes a much more kind of captivating journey because of the subtlety of the sounds and the complexity of the palette.
It seems you found each other in this. Have you actually seen the program of the rest that is happening on Cross-linx? What are you going to do after you've performed?
Well, you know, like there's a couple of things I want to see, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, because, you know, we have to prepare, and, you know, like Huub Bevink, you know, I would like to see, but he plays right before us.
I know,
so it's always a bit of a pain in the ass if you're like playing on a festival to find the time to go and see other stuff, but I definitely will try.
One last question for the both of you. If you can choose one word which you would wish to the world, and it would happen, what word is it?
Balance.
Cooperation.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at Cross-linx.
We'll be there. Don't start without me. That's right. Thanks, man.
Does any of you have perfect pitch?
No.
No?
But the piano player.
The piano player has it.
The piano player has it, and I tell you, he can't listen to like down-tuned orchestras anymore because he's so used to 440, you know, like which is. So he said, like, you know, like he always played like a classical piece himself on cello, and he went to see somebody who played it in 428 or something, really low, and he said like, I couldn't stay it. It was like. So also, if you ask him to transpose something, you know, like with electronics, with synthesizers, you can just turn it off and just play, but he can't do that because he has perfect pitch. So he really transposes. He has to, because for him, it's so. If you want to talk to somebody with perfect pitch, talk to
That's the guy. Perfect.
David Poltron. It's your guy.
Nice. Another guy.